Peace and welcome to the culture right here on the Black Star Network. I'm your host, Farajii Muhammad. Thank you so much for tuning in, and happy Monday, folks. We got a lot of great conversations. First, I want to talk about the situation that's happening in Detroit, Michigan, politically, where Black political power is losing, is seeing itself diminish. We'll talk about what's the latest as we go into this year's midterm election. Also, can we talk about that angry Black woman trope that continues to be a part of the narrative down in Georgia as both gubernatorial candidate Stacey Abrams and Val Demings are against candidates who are bringing that out? And I'm wondering, can we get past this? We'll be checking in with B. Fly to give her take on that conversation. And let's talk about the fact that there are a number of donor of sperm banks that are saying Black male donors are not there. There is a shortage on Black male sperm. We're going to check in with Dr. George Cooper, OBGYN, to give us the latest on this situation and how it affects the choices of Black women. So stay with us, that and a whole lot more on today's edition of The Culture here on the Black Star Network. Let's go. Folks, welcome to the culture here on the Black Star Network. I'm your host, Farajii Muhammad. Thank you so much for tuning in and being a part of the conversation. First and foremost, folks, happy Monday. I hope your week is starting off well as we jump into a number of conversations that kind of spilled over from the weekend, but some things that are coming up. This first conversation, at least, I wanted to get the ball rolling, talking about, of course, the midterm elections. And I'm going to just let y'all know that we're going to be having a number of conversations, various stories around as we work our way up to the midterm elections. So, don't get so upset. Don't be like, oh, this is what we're talking about. Yes, this is what we're talking about here on Black Star Network, folks. It is pivotal, absolutely pivotal that folks go and vote their interest, and especially in these local elections, that you do your part to be a part of the conversations, and more importantly, do your part to participate in all of these issues in some way, shape, or form. This is also a great opportunity and a great time that I think that we can all recommit ourselves to doing something for our community, to doing something for our cities or our counties or our state, to get involved in some way, shape, or form. If nothing else comes out of these shows and these conversations, it's just this platform called The Culture that we have here on the Black Star Network. The thing I would want you to remember the most is to put some action in your citizenry. Don't be a lazy constituent. That's what I would say to you. Don't be a lazy constituent. Put yourself into action. Get involved as much as you can. Start with the places that are near and dear to your heart, those issues and those causes that are near and dear to your heart. And then branch out. Because once you start getting the ball rolling, and in my time of doing activism work and organizing work, I found that I start to look and I'm interested in other things that I never thought I would be interested in, say, 5-10 years ago. But once you start to learn how things work, once you understand the dynamics of power, once you understand how government works and how money works and all of these things, it just opens up your world. So I don't want you to be a lazy constituent. I want you to be an active citizen. Even if the United States don't count us as full citizens, quote unquote, as stated in the founding documents, the thing is that we can't keep that mindset that we have to be active citizens. Now, here's the thing. Here's why I'm bringing that up. Is because what I'm seeing in the state of Georgia, in the city of Detroit, is something that I think just speaks volumes about where we are right now. And folks, I was a little bit blown away, and I said, well, how can I talk to the culture crew? How can I talk to the audience about this? And I said, you know what? We're going to break this down into small pieces, right? Because we just don't have enough time. But we've had a number of conversations about Black political power, and I think this year probably more than any other time. And I would even go as far as to say, even beyond the presidential elections, right? I mean, we had those big conversations, but this midterm is so different. This midterm is so different, folks. And it requires us to be much more in tune with ourselves and in tune with our values and in tune with our view and our vision for a new future, right? It's so different. But more than that, it's also a sign that something needs to change with Black political power. And this is what's happening in the city of Detroit. And I want to share this with you. This is what's going on right now, folks. Now, take a look. This gentleman here, his name is Sri Thinendar, excuse me, Sri Thinendar. He had beaten, take a look. This is the state representative for the city, Michigan's 13th congressional district, which covers, which is in Detroit. This guy, and I'm not putting him on blast, I'm just sharing with you what the situation is. This is the man who has beaten 8 Black candidates in a primary to become the Democratic candidate for Michigan's 13th congressional district. And look what and I want to show you what this report is. And this is coming from the New York Times. The New York Times said that this Sri Thinendar, excuse me, he became this candidate for the first time in almost 70 years in a city that has the nation's largest majority of Black people. This is the representative. His victory, according to the New York Times, set off waves of anxiety among Detroit's Black political leaders who tried desperately to prevent Mr. Thinendar from winning. A primary win in such a heavily Democratic district is tantamount to being elected. I've experienced that in Baltimore as well. Black leaders describe it as embarrassing and disappointing and argue that Detroit should have representation that reflects its population, which is 77% Black. 3/4 of Detroit voters supported a Black candidate. I want to stop right here because I want to, and like I say, I got to break this down into pieces. And I'll share please, into my culture crew, y'all share your thoughts with us, and let's just have a brief discussion around this. This is like our intro to understanding that we really need to look at Black political power in some of these spaces, some of these major cities. When you're talking about Baltimore, Detroit, Chicago, Atlanta, Los Angeles, there is something happening, folks, where Black political power that we know it. Like, you have those Black political gatekeepers. We all know those individuals, right? In our respective cities and states. But we're also finding, and we've had this conversation last week, right? That Black people, of course, we're not monolithic. That Black people, just because you're Black doesn't mean you're automatically going to gain the Black vote. That Black people are seriously considering going across the aisle to do something with the Republican Party to see what they can get out of that. Black people, I'm saying Black voters are all over the place. If you have a gentleman, again, I'm not mad at this man for running, but he beat 8 Black candidates in Detroit, folks, to become the Democratic candidate, and he disrupted a history. Now, this is not his fault. This is not his fault. It just goes to show you that something is happening, that if he's able to beat 8 Black candidates, how was that able to happen? How was that able to happen? Let me share with you very quickly, and Keenan and Ariel, let's put up the second quote, please, from the article. Let me share with you, the New York Times said, according to their report, they said the challenge to Black political power in Detroit comes from divisions within its own leadership and from constituents. Reapportionment cost Michigan a House seat last year, and the newly redrawn district maps reduced the number of Black voters in the 13th district. After years of severe economic insecurity and a string of political scandals, some residents are showing a willingness to try something new. Take a listen to this. Watch this final sentence, folks. there is an emerging sense among some Black constituents that the psychic, emotional, and symbolic benefits of racial representation may not have materially improved their lives. Mm. Y'all hear me on that one? This is what's been reported. This is the landscape that Black folks have to work in. So you have a candidate who's able to navigate through all of that. If 3/4 of Black folks went out to support three Black candidates, then how was this gentleman able to get through the fray and become the Democratic candidate and essentially stop history with nearly, after 70 years, there's not going to be any Black person going to Congress from a predominantly Black city like Detroit? How does that happen? Well, a couple of things that crossed my mind, folks. The first thing that crossed my mind was that there were so many Black candidates. And this is the old, if you understand politics, about splitting the vote. This is a huge problem. I've seen this happen in Baltimore, and I've seen this happen in other cities. There's this huge problem where we can't be united even with the candidates. Y'all understand what I'm saying? We can't be united even with the candidates, and that's a problem. And as a result of that, you got Black folks voting for other Black folks, yeah. But then guess what? It opens up the field where another candidate who may not be a representative of the majority population is able to come through the middle and essentially win. I hope y'all understand what I'm saying on this. Again, this is not necessarily a bad thing for the candidate. I'm not blaming Mr. Thanida for running. I'm looking at, what does that say about Black political power and where we are right now, where we are allowed, where something like this would happen. And my concern is that this may happen in other cities where there's a strong Black political, base, strong Black political power. In cities like, around the South, like I said, this happened in Baltimore and in other places, right? Where folks can essentially take advantage of the splitting of the vote. And we got to figure out, why do we need, if you have 8 Black candidates on a single ballot, folks, we can't have a conversation beforehand. I remember back in the day, I was always told, and I was told this by a number of people, so y'all may have heard this or not, but I was told that at a certain point back in the day, maybe 40, 50 years ago, there were certain conversations that were had with Black folks getting in politics. Like you had a coalition of folks that would look at each candidate and say, hey, okay, you running for Black folks? And this coalition could be made up of community people and business people, but they essentially decided they were the ones that gave the blessings to the candidates. Or they were these were the group of people, and y'all know what type of folks, right? These were the group of people that determined, like, okay, we got a couple of things on the political agenda. So which candidate would be best fit? Which candidate would best serve the interest? We can't have too many candidates, because guess what? We split the vote. We gotta put our blessing, and we have to make sure that we can, put a couple of candidates out there. And I know Black folks saying we all don't think the same. But if we don't have to think the same about everything, but if we don't think the same about anything, then that becomes the problem. You mean to tell me that you got that many Black folks and somebody couldn't have said, hey man, how about for the interest of the greater good, for the interest of the collective good, look, if we want to keep this thing Black, right, we want to keep this thing representative of the population, then we should fall back. That's the first thing. The second thing that I found that was interesting is because you got so many Black people who unfortunately have screwed over other Black people while in office. And I'm thinking about Kwame Kilpatrick out of Detroit, the former mayor who was doing what he was doing, right? And how that would allow, that added to the distrust that Black folks have of other Black people in political office. Because we always want to say vote Black, and I'm down for it. But when I vote Black, are you going to be a thief? When I vote Black, are you going to be some, just not doing your job, or you involved in other stuff? You think you can follow the same rules as your white colleagues? So you involved in the same stuff? Nah. And can you really? And I've literally seen this, folks. I have literally seen this. This has happened in Baltimore, and I've seen this in other places. That when certain Black folks get elected out and say they're very popular among some of the people get mad. Y'all may have seen this. The candidate gets mad at the voters for not voting for them, even though that candidate may have a bunch of baggage. And you mad at the voters because we tell people to vote. We say go out and go to the ballot box. But when they go out to the ballot box, you blast them because they didn't vote for you, instead of saying, well, I appreciate the time that I was able to serve or the opportunity. You blast them for making the wrong choice. But you got all this baggage. You got all this drama. But you want us to vote for you because you Black. Because you did a couple of things for Black folk. But overall, we're not getting the full benefit of your time in office. That's why that piece in the New York Times, that's why I wanted to highlight this. There's an emerging sense among Black constituents that the psychic, emotional, and symbolic benefits of racial representation may not have materially improved their lives. Yeah, a Pyrrhic victory could be good. A symbolic victory is good, but my taxes, I'm still paying high for. I can't get a loan for my small business. I can't get a loan I can't refinance my home without going through the institutionalized racism with mortgage loans. The problems with the police continue to happen, right? The schools in my neighborhood are still, but you Black. It's symbolic. And this is not a shade on Black political leadership. I'm talking about a certain type of Black leader that wants the grandstand in front of us, but they want us to enjoy the symbolism. Oh, I'm the first Black person in this role or this position. But are you going to be the first Black person to actually do some work? And this is creating a problem, I think, for a lot of us, because we don't want to just use our vote haphazardly. We don't want to just give away our vote. And, we don't want to just go like our little sister, when I talked about it last week, she talking about the least worst option down in Atlanta. We don't want to feel that way when our people are on the ballot. But if you are standing before Black folk and all you got to offer is your presence, not presents, not like Christmas, your presence, like your existence, that's all you offer. The fact that you in the room. But your mind and your heart and your efforts don't lead to real change for Black people. It adds to Black folks feeling like, I'm not getting nothing. And that's the place that we in. All right, let me go to some of these. Man, folks are checking in. Tiana, you kicked us off today. Good to hear from you. You said, look, I'm thinking the quality of the candidates. Right. Right. I mean, out of 8 candidates, if this gentleman was able to beat 8 black candidates in this congressional race, out of 8 candidates, Tiana, it's hard for me to believe that at least 2, 3, 4 possibly, or maybe 2 or 3 of them are quality candidates. And you mean to tell me the others couldn't rally behind those 2 or 3? Maybe 1? Real Brooklyn, Tiana, appreciate you, sis. Thank you. Real Brooklyn, my guy, you said, and also didn't Detroit just change its district maps, right? And it reduced the number of black voters. Yeah, I said that, right? That's one of the reasons why black voters in Detroit are being disempowered, right? So you're disempowered in representation. You're disempowered based on the congressional boundaries. What is black political power doing? All this stuff is happening. You saying it's embarrassing? Yeah, it's embarrassing. I'm embarrassed for you. I'm not even in the city. I'm embarrassed. Because Detroit was always that stalwart city for black power, for black political power. Detroit has been one of them cities, like Chicago is Detroit. Certain cities has always understood the pulse of black political power. So if Detroit is losing, woo. I feel you, Real Brooklyn. Thank you for checking in. Jawan, thank you, sis. You said the math ain't mathing between gerrymandering and infighting within our own party. It's like we take 1 step forward and 2 steps back. I'm not sure what the solution is. Right. Let me tell you, it's unity. I mean, that comes to me, unity, right? Putting away our egos, right? Knowledge. You know what I'm saying? Like there are some big things, but unity. I mean, we all, again, we're not a monolith. We all got different interests, but at the end of the day, what's for the greater good? You see what I'm saying? And we may have to go back to that old school way of, hey man, sitting down with whoever that coalition of folks are in your respective city who've always. And we had them in Baltimore, and I'm sure there's something like that here in Los Angeles and all of that stuff. Like some black folks gotta just be like, look, man, whether it's black business people, whether it's whoever, look, we can't have 6 and 7 black folks on the ticket. Somebody's going to have to sit their ass down. I mean, it's old school, but we may have to go back to that. You don't like my music. You said black people can be reactionary too. We need to fight that. Oh, absolutely. Oh, that absolutely, bro. Absolutely. Everything is everything. You said too much ego, not enough on code. Come on, man. Come on. That's the place we in. We can't be so ego. Like, I get it. Okay, it's not your time. And I'm not saying it's like, what older folks say to the younger folks. I'm talking about, hey, man, if your agenda or if your platform isn't as strong, or if your influence among the people isn't that strong, you might want to sit down. Let's build that up. And let's get you in the next cycle. But this cycle, this is our guy. This is our system. You know what I'm saying? And it is what it is. It's organized political power. We always talk about, well, what white people, any group of people, they do that. They put their best forward, right? They get past all the egos. They get past, well, they coulda, woulda, shouldas. They get past living vicariously through somebody else and say, look, what's for the greater good? How are we going to still remain power? We're so worried about the individual, we forget about the collective. See, that's how messed up our system and our culture is at this moment. We're so worried about what's good for me and not what's good for us and we. Michael, everything is everything. Thank you. Michael Judkins, good to hear from you. You said it is called gerrymandering. There's always been more than one black person running for the same office. Where have you been? I am from Detroit. I didn't say it hasn't. No, don't get me mixed up, Michael. I didn't say that more than one person shouldn't run, or that's crazy that they are running. No, I didn't say that. But if you got 8 people on the ballot and gerrymandering happens, why shouldn't you prepare for that? And I'm saying that not just about Detroit. I'm talking about any city. You see stuff that's coming down the pipe, right? And I'm talking about the black political power, the older folks, the folks that's been in the system for a long time, the folks that understand it. A lot of your candidates, they're not older, they're younger, they're fresher, they are not as, some of them may be naive, some of them not knowledgeable about all of these strategies and tactics and things to keep people disenfranchised and disempowered. So the older folks got to say, look, bring them into the room and say, look, here's the situation. We got so many months before this next election. They're gerrymandering right now. Here's what we need to do. If you're thinking about running for office, come talk to us so we can figure out how the best way we can put forth a representative that's going to carry the agenda. I mean, it's called organizing, bro. It's called preparing for those things. It's not like we can't work against gerrymandering. We just got to organize. Fly girl, you checked in. I live in Detroit. I vote. The bottom line, black people did not come out and vote. And why didn't that happen, Fly girl? If y'all had a candidate that spoke to your interests and needs, I would think that people would come out to vote. But somebody else spoke for us in a predominantly black city. How does that? 77% of Detroit is black. 77. In Baltimore, it was like 65. So we had a high black number. But you mean to tell me that black folks can't organize or have a candidate? I can't believe that. It's hard for me to believe that. There was some candidate that could have spoke to the needs of the people. Shalinda, you said, and these black ones that didn't vote will be the main ones complaining, right? Right. Absolutely. Willie Frazier, you checked in and said, the question we should ask ourselves before we vote for me would be, is this person who runs for political office a public servant? Brother, absolutely. I couldn't agree with you more, Willie. I could not agree with you more, bro. That's part of the problem. We're not asking that question. Like, is this person who's standing before me asking for my support, are they really a public servant? Are they in it to serve, or are they in it to gain for themselves? That's a viable question. And we need to ask every black person that comes across to us, not what you got. Oh, y'all seen you in some pictures with this person and that person, because we get enamored by that. But be like, look, man, are you here to serve? Like, for real, break it down for me like I'm in 4th grade, bro. Are you here to serve? Does your history speaks to your ability to serve the public without asking for a whole bunch of frills and thrills? I don't need, you know what I mean? You got to ask that question. Janelle, you checked it. After George Floyd protests, Democrats should have started civic ed and then consolidated under the agreed upon platform of ideas. Leadership funnel must be developed or you get a pile on. All right, let me just change that one thing, Janelle, and I like the direction that you're going. Take out Dems, replace it with black power, black political power. This ain't the Democrats' fault, y'all. This ain't the Democrats' fault. If you are waiting for the Democrats to respond to this ain't the Democrats' fault. This is black political power. This is an issue with black people, and I'm talking about those who have been in this system. They need to carry this. Lana, my sister, you checked in. Politically, we are dead, and our current leadership has failed us. Not all, because we can highlight which ones are. There are those who are running right now, or Mandela Barnes and others who are running right now, but not all. I don't want us to get into a place of hopelessness. They haven't all failed us, but we got to figure out how to duplicate those who are coming before us. Man, there we go. All right, let me get to Fly Girl. You said stop by blaming the redistricting in Detroit. Not enough young people came out to vote for the black candidate. Well, you got a lot of black candidates to vote for. So look, here's the thing. I wanted to put this out there because I'm very, very greatly concerned about where we are in the city of Detroit. But here's what we're going to talk about this as we lead up to, of course, to the midterms. But this can't be the way we go as we move forward in the presidential election. This can't be the way we roll, folks. Like, if nothing else, this midterm should give us some insight about where we are, how we need to change, and more importantly, what is going to be the new path for Black political power and progress in this country. If nothing else, the midterms should do that. All right, I got to take a quick pause. When we come back, let's check in with Culture Crew member B Fly as we talk about the trope of the angry Black woman, how that trope is continuing to be a part of the narrative, especially in the states and hotly contested states like Georgia with Stacey Abrams and Val Deming, and what we can do to move past it so that doesn't become a deterrent for Black folks to come out and support their own. Stay with us. That discussion is up next here on The Culture on the Black Star Network.
Hatred on the streets, a horrific scene, a white nationalist rally that descended into deadly violence.
White people are losing their damn minds.
As an angry pro-Trump mob storms the U.S. Capitol, we've seen shootings.
We're about to see the rise of what I call white minority resistance. We have seen white folks in this country who simply cannot tolerate Black folks voting.
I think what we're seeing is the inevitable result of violent denial.
This is part of American history. Every time that people of color have made progress, whether real or symbolic, there has been what Carol Anderson at Emory University calls white rage as a backlash.
This is the rise of the Proud Boys and the Boogaloo Boys. America, there's going to be more of this.
Here's all the Proud Boys, guys.
This country is getting increasingly racist in its behaviors and its attitudes because of the fear of white people.
The fear that they're taking our jobs, they're taking our resources, they're taking our women. This is white fear.
When we invest in ourselves, we all shine. Together, we are Black beyond measure.
When you talk about Blackness and what happens in Black culture, we're about covering these things that matter to us, speaking to our issues and concerns.
This is a genuine people-powered movement.
There's a lot of stuff that we're not getting. You get it, and you spread the word.
We wish to plead our own cause. Too long have others spoken for us. We cannot tell our own story if we can't pay for it. This is about covering us. Invest in Black-owned media. Your dollars matter. We don't have to keep asking them to cover our stuff. So please support us in what we do, folks. We want to hit 2,000 people, $50 this month, raise $100,000. We're behind 100,000, so we want to hit that. Y'all money makes this possible. Check some money orders. Go to P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 20037-0196. The Cash App is $RM Unfiltered. PayPal is R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle is RolandSMartin.com.
Welcome to Atlanta, one of the most expensive housing markets in America. But rather than help out, Brian Kemp cashed in. He made hundreds of thousands of dollars in real estate. His net worth skyrocketed. And while Atlantans struggled to stay in their homes, Kemp gave $10,000 tax handouts to the richest Georgians and a nearly $700 million no-bid contract to his campaign donor. Brian Kickback Kemp, making Georgia work for him, not you.
All right, folks, welcome back to the show here on the Culture on the Black Star Network. We're going to continue to talk a little bit about politics, but wanted to drop that piece for you about the city of Detroit and what I'm seeing. And so many of you have been checking in and talking about this, but let Detroit serve as a cautionary tale, because this is concerning, greatly concerning for me, and I hope it's concerning to you. Because if we're talking about getting out of this political rut that we find ourselves in, right, with our relationship between the two parties, making sure that we as a constituency, as a citizenry, we are on the same page of our interests that are not just good for our families, but for our communities, and it's good for us as a whole, as a people. There's so many different factors. And so my hope is that part of the conversation, we can start to see something tangible and see the impact, the consequences. Because Black political power, I think, is not as strong as it could be in some areas. And we need certain parts of this country to be on board with strength, with progress, being progressive. We need some bases all around this country. If we're talking about gaining any power, because right now I feel like we're all over the place. And that could just be me. So this is just my little opinion. But we need cities like Detroit to turn out. We need Baltimore. We need the folks down in the South, whether you're in Atlanta, Nashville, Miami. I mean, we need certain places that we know that Black folks are going to be able to turn out. Chicago, Dallas. I'm thinking about even here in Los Angeles, in other cities. Like, we need Black folks to turn out. So we don't have the liberty to just, okay, we're going to just do what we want to do. We need to think about this from a collective perspective, from a national perspective, and not just from a local perspective. All right, I want to shift gears a little bit because I wanted to talk about the often used trope that is used against Black women, which is the angry Black woman. Anytime a woman has an issue with something, then sometimes you see people, and both men, Black men and white men, but this is often thrown in a Black woman's face where she's quote unquote mad, angry. And I want to push back on that. In a time that we're living in, why shouldn't we be angry? I'm just saying. This is the case of what we're seeing down in Georgia right now. Stacey Abrams running for office down there. Val Demings running for office down there. And guess what? The angry Black women trope finds its way into election debate. And this is so bullshit. I mean, on so many levels. That's why I had to bring my sister into this. We got B-Fly denied. B-Fly, what's happening? Who is a filmmaker. She's an activist. She's co-founder of Blackwater Production House. B-Fly, I know this is very near and dear to your heart in terms of how women are portrayed in various spaces, in politics, arts, everywhere. So when we're talking about this Black woman thing, and this was something that was brought up in the debate with Stacey Abrams from Brian Kemp, her opponent. He's saying that Stacey Abrams was mad and angry. And it really is a way to keep people in check. This is like a way of keep Black women in check, controlling the narrative. I want to share this very quick quote, and then B-Fly, I want to get your take on this. It was written by the griot that in the world of politics, it is magnified 10 times more because Black women in the spotlight, whether national or state level, have to mind every word, facial expression, or action, lest we be attacked for not being like our white female counterparts who are often accepted as more kind, gentle, easier to deal with, and more diplomatic. B, what is this? Why is this still happening? Why is this narrative still so powerful in trying to control Black women, quote unquote? You're on mute, B. Yeah, there we go.
Mic check.
Yeah.
How you feel, Farajii?
I'm good. How are you, B?
Great.
Good.
Good day. All right. So, I think when this happens, it's because the enemy has no other approach. You can't argue the politics, you can't argue the stats. So we end up arguing emotion. All right. As if anger doesn't have its own justification, and so what I am accepting today, all right, is that it is quite okay, quite natural, and we should be a certain level of collective angry, you know? Like, it's not like we're living in our utopia, you
Right.
know? So with that, and
Right.
it's not like we aren't still held hostage with our captors. So, you know, so we are supposed to be angry. The issue isn't our anger. The issue is ambivalence. The issue ends up being the white passive aggressive behavior, you know, that accompanies feminine energy and masks itself as diplomatic, because it is not diplomatic, it is manipulative. All right. And so it's necessary for women to be able to identify rage as a specific catalyst into the fullness of our love language, and being able to practice that on enemy soil, which is also the soil that our ancestors tilled. So, you know, so yes, we can get mad, and, you know, they shouldn't call us angry, but raise your hand if you mad. Stacey mad too. Yes, you know, so I can be angry, you know, I'm
Right.
supposed to be angry, you know, politics is supposed to be able to house my anger into a clear process of voting, and with a democratic process, you know, and so there's an anger there because somewhere along the vote in the street, something don't disconnect. Oh, hell yeah. We're still discussing women and anger, you know, and I think what it is, Farajii, you know, we love, you know, we love to romanticize God. We love to see God in the sprinkle and in the rainbow and in the flowers, but, you know, God is also wrath.
Right.
And if I know women the way I know women, we are all of the above, you know? And so it's necessary for all of that to be unleashed when it's supposed to, with the clear execution, you know? And so that's what I'm a proponent for, you know? Every other group gets to be angry.
And see, B, that's
Patriots,
the thing. That's the thing.
Patriots got to be angry.
What? I mean, and I mean, I hope. I mean, man, oh man, I really. It's like moments like this, B. What I just say, I really hope that the sisters like Val and Stacey and other Black women who are running for office, I hope they have people around them to be like, be angry. Because there's a way for you to be angry and not go Tasmanian style on somebody, right? Like you could still, you know, the book calls it righteous anger. Why shouldn't you not have righteous anger?
You know, there's a difference between being angry and being unhinged, Farajii.
Facts.
So we're not talking about unhinged psychotic women, all right? And
Right.
so
Great point.
that's where it is, you know. And
Yeah.
so if I know these, if I know these women the way I know these women, they're just gonna ride above that. You know, this is just another assault, another verbal
Right.
assault from white men, you know. And so it's like these things just kind of roll off of us like water, you know, at this point, which is also extremely angering. So at any time, a Black woman can express her anger and and be in full right and privilege and justification at the end of the day, you know. God is the tsunami, God is the rainbow, you know.
Let me tell you, remember that moment, B, when President Obama was in office and I think it was during the killing of Trayvon Martin. And he made the point that the police, no, it wasn't Trayvon, no. I think it was the situation when Henry Louis Gates was locked out of his own house by mistake. And he called the police, and the police started harassing Henry Louis Gates about his own residence, right? And then the president, former President Barack Obama, came out and said the police acted stupidly. And people were like because he was clearly angry. The president was clearly angry. But it was just like, this thing that we put ourselves under, and I think this is something even for us as Black folks, right? When we look at people in leadership roles, let's change the standard. It's okay to be emotional and passionate and angry and joyous and full of joy and pride. And I mean, we're human beings. And you know, Fetus Buddha, you said this. Anger is a normal human emotion. I question the ones who are not angry.
Right.
Everything. How do you as a Black person in this country, you're running for office. Now we angry because we sitting outside of the situation, right? Like you know, we only privy to a little bit of information. But can you imagine you getting details about some of the injustices that plagues us each and every day? And you gotta have a straight face. You have to be very business, quote unquote, business-like, as you talk and address the injustices that is crippling your people in a land of the free.
You know, Farajii, here's the thing. You know, there's only certain people are allowed to be angry.
Yeah.
You know, and so it's like, because we have not learned as a collective how to individually express true anger, you know, and so it's and so because of that, we end up pulling out these individual celebrities, these entities out of the wind, out of the sky, you know. So today we talk about Stacey Abrams. Last week we spoke about another Gemini. One is okay to be angry and express it, the other one is not, you know. And so it's like there's and so this conversation of who is allowed to express any one of their human emotions, you know, at any day, you know, becomes up for scrutiny, you know. And so it's like, and at the end of the day, I don't blame the politicians. I blame we media houses, you know, end up stamping, you know, who is allowed to be angry and who is not. And these allowances change with the seasons, you know. Right. And so it's like, so it's always up for discussion whether a Black woman is permitted to be angry or not. It's always up for discussion whether a Black man is permitted to be angry or not, you know. But at the end of the day, you know, the Patriots, we see collective white anger.
Come on, right? come on.
This is like when the issue is not the anger of a Black woman, you know. The issue and the real fear, you know, is what happens when white people decide to be angry at it.
Come on, and B, I'm right there with you. I'm right there. When they get angry, they pull out tiki torches. They ready to burn some shit down.
Straight up. You know what I'm saying? Burn everything.
No, I mean, seriously. They ready to burn it down, right? When they get angry. Hell, when they get excited and happy, they turn stuff up in some cases, right? You see this, right? After football games and matches and sports.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying? But when you see that, they get upset. But that can't be, we don't have, it's almost like we're told the audacity for you to be upset with your oppression.
It's crazy, you know? And
it's absolutely insane. And here's the thing, B. Hey, B, check this out, and I wanted to get your take on it. What do you think is the consequence of us having that same standard about our representatives? Because some Black person, a man or a woman, may feel offended that they might see a Stacey Abrams or Val Demings or any other Black candidate getting angry and upset. There's a consequence to that, though, right?
I feel the exact opposite. I think the reason why we have a political ambivalence right now is because no one is angry enough to change anything, and you're not going to change anything until you are mad enough to literally destroy it and make it all over again, and that's what it is. And so we don't have that politician, that political voice, is literally non-existent. So as a result, we end up looking for a watered down as substitute for it, and unfortunately, this is why the Trump effect is still lingering, because you have a person who is at least able to trigger a strong emotion and ride a wave with that consistently, and so when we look at the opponents, when we look at the Democrats, I go to sleep. I'm sleepy. Lord, and so in these, and this is the reality of our political landscape.
Absolutely.
Right now, going into midterms. Let's just be honest. Everyone bores me. And so this is why in Texas you have these celebrities. You have Matthew McConaughey trying to get his hat in the ring real quick, and
right.
I understand it. And it's unfortunate, but all it takes is a little speech, and you have all of America voting for Matthew McConaughey, praying for change, and so it's we. Am I wrong?
I mean, look, I feel you.
Y'all don't even want to admit it. You know what I'm saying? But
no. Look, let me tell you. When Matthew McConaughey said what he said about his hometown of Uvalde, Texas, and the gun situation and that a tragic shooting of those children, and people were like, "Oh my God!" They were blown away. They were like, Matthew McConaughey. And again, see, I think this is the culture that we in as we wrap up this portion of the discussion. But this is the culture that we in. We think that everybody should stay in their place, right? That what happens in the country should not spill over into Hollywood, or it shouldn't spill over into Wall Street, right? We are so conditioned to think on this one track, or to think in this very segregated way, emotionally and mentally, that we don't understand that that's not how the human being is designed. Like we can't just completely remove ourselves from the situation, because guess what? That's the problem what we have now. You got some Black people who think they're better than others because they live in a different neighborhood, or they make a different amount of money, right? Or you got some folks who say, well, you know what? My ideology is better because it comes from this person instead of that person. I mean, it's just fascinating. I saw this very fascinating. I was watching football yesterday, and I don't know if anybody else saw this commercial. It's from a nonprofit that speaks about Christianity. But they have this commercial where they talked about, they said there once was a man who was a controversial figure. And they started to show the faces of Black and brown and poor whites. And he said that this man had a message that people were resistant to. It was a powerful commercial. At the end of the commercial, they described Jesus. Powerful commercial. I was like, this is brilliant.
Jesus for the win.
That was brilliant, right? This is brilliant. You know what I'm saying? But the way they didn't show old pictures of what we know to be Michelangelo's cousin. They didn't show those pictures. They showed pictures of men and women, us today, Black people, Latino people, white people. And I was like, this is brilliant. This is brilliant. And so the point I'm making is that when you're in a space like this where people living in their silos and stuff, like part of the culture I would think would be to push back on individualism and moving into a space of collectivism. Part of the big thing for the civil rights movement, the driving force was our anger. We may not want to admit it, but the driving force for change was our anger. We were sick and tired.
It was rage.
Rage. Like you talked about anger, right? Versus unhinged. But when you're talking about that rage, you know what I'm saying? That rage.
There is no, like, rage is what a mother will lift a car to get her child. You know what I'm saying? Understand, and so until we get to that point, there is no change. There is no change. It will literally just be like the de-evolution of what could have been the American dream at some point. But like, you're still gonna have that that choir in the back who knew whole time it was a nightmare.
Exit.
So,
absolutely. Absolutely. That's where we are. Look, we got to take a quick pause. When we come forward, folks, we're going to switch gears. I want to have this other conversation about Black sperm donors being at an all-time low. We're going to be checking in with Dr. Joy Cooper, who is an OBGYN, to talk to us about the implications of this epidemic and why it's going to force Black women to make some very, very hard choices about family planning. So we'll have that conversation up next. So stay with us. You're tuned into The Culture right here on the Black Star Network.
When we invest in ourselves, we all shine. Together, we are Black beyond measure.
Don't you think it's time to get wealthy? I'm Deborah Owens, America's Wealth Coach, and my new show on the Black Star Network focuses on the things your financial advisor or bank isn't telling you. So watch Get Wealthy on the Black Star Network.
When we invest in ourselves, our glow, our vision, our vibe, we all shine. Together, we are Black beyond measure.
When you talk about Blackness and what happens in Black culture, we're about covering these things that matter to us, speaking to our issues and concerns.
This is a genuine people-powered movement.
There's a lot of stuff that we're not getting. You get it, and you spread the word.
We wish to plead our own cause. Too long have others spoken for us. We cannot tell our own story if we can't pay for it. This is about covering us. Invest in Black-owned media. Your dollars matter. We don't have to keep asking them to cover our stuff. So please support us in what we do, folks. We want to hit 2,000 people, $50 this month, raise $100,000. We're behind 100,000, so we want to hit that. Y'all money makes this possible. Checks and money orders go to P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 20037-0196. The Cash App is $RM Unfiltered. PayPal is R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle is RolandS.Martin.com.
Welcome to Atlanta, one of the most expensive housing markets in America. But rather than help out, Brian Kemp cashed in. He made hundreds of thousands of dollars in real estate. His net worth skyrocketed. And while Atlantans struggled to stay in their homes, Kemp gave $10,000 tax handouts to the richest Georgians and a nearly $700 million no-bid contract to his campaign donor, Brian Kickback Kemp, making Georgia work for him, not you.
coming
Folks,
on. He was
welcome
going
to
to
the
be there.
second hour of the culture right here on the Black Star Network. I'm your host, Farajii Muhammad. Thank you so much for tuning in. So grateful. First and foremost, I'm jumping into the chat here on our as we stream live on YouTube. Folks, if you haven't had a chance to jump into the chat or on Facebook or YouTube, check us out. A lot of the big conversations that we wanted to have, they're happening right now. So a big shout out to my online culture crew, keeping the discussions going, even after we move on from different segments. There's so much more that I'm learning, and I just enjoy listening and just enjoy reading and engaging with so many of you. So make sure y'all jump into the chat, be a part of the conversation. This is exactly what we wanted to have as we created this platform. And that's why we always tell you, make sure that you continue to support us here at Black Star Network, because this is the type of space where we can have a discussion of ideas and a discussion of sentiments. And we can go into these discussions because we don't always have the space, especially while these things are happening. While we, when do you have a chance to engage with your news in real time? So that's the beauty of what we're doing here on the culture on the Black Star Network. That's why we want you to continue to show your support. Go to our website today at blackstarnetwork.com. Support Black Star Network financially. Support us through sharing all of our content, and support us by downloading the app and continuing to strengthen our voice, as we are a Black-owned media institution and digital platform. We need your support today. Also, make sure that you check me out on my Instagram page at The Real Farajii. You can find me at Farajii on Twitter and Farajii Muhammad on Facebook. We'd love to connect with you, but I'm connecting with some of you right now on the chat, and I truly, truly appreciate the discussions that we're having. All right, folks, I wanted to switch gears, talk from politics to talk about family planning, something that is near and dear to my heart, because I realize that a lot of times we're not having enough conversations about the future of our families. And so, I'm joined by our culture crew member, B Fly, who is a filmmaker. She's a producer. She's an artist and activist doing some great work. And I wanted to talk about this latest phenomenon that we're seeing, where sperm donors and sperm banks are asking and are in need of Black male sperm donors. This is a real crisis for sperm banks across this country. Take a look here. America has a Black sperm donor shortage. Black women are paying the price. And what is the price? What is the price of this, folks? The price is that Black women are going to be confronted to make a decision about whether they want to have a child that may be biracial, or they're going to have to make some other choices. Here to talk to us about this is Dr. Joy Cooper, who is an OBGYN, to give us some insight into this epidemic. Dr. Cooper, Dr. Joy, thank you so much for joining us here on the culture here on the Black Star Network. How are you this afternoon?
I'm great. Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely, absolutely. Doc, talk to us about this. Here's what I found based upon this discussion, and I think that this is something that I think is. And let's just throw this quote up on the screen very quickly, Keenan and Ariel. The first quote that we saw around this situation, and I want to make sure that we put it up there. If y'all did y'all get that one yet? Okay, let me just share this with y'all very quickly. And then, Doc, I want to hear your take on it. Cryobanks reported that the number of Black women seeking their services to conceive rose sharply during the pandemic after increasing steadily over the years. Black women between the ages of 35 and 45 are far more likely to remain unmarried than women from other racial groups, according to the latest census data, with 44% of non-Hispanic Black women unmarried compared with 16% of white women. Yet Black sperm donors represent just a fraction of available supply, fewer than 2% at the country's 4 largest sperm banks, according to an analysis by the Washington Post. Wow. Why is this the case, Dr. Cooper? Why aren't we seeing Black sperm as in high volumes than others?
So it's honestly a long-standing issue. This is not new. I think it's been conflated now because of the pandemic. I think the pandemic has brought this like YOLO energy, where everybody's like, let me have my baby now, because who knows what's going to be going on 2, 3, 4, 5 years from now. We've seen that, people are making that decision. But if you look back to, there's been articles about this for years. The problem is this: when you are a cryobank, you're looking for a few good men. And so what do people see that as? How do they advertise for that? Do they encourage, do they have advertising that appeals to Black men? And so I think really it's a couple things. That I think the problem is there always has been a shortage. I don't want anybody to think that this article coming out says that it's now. The problem is that demand has gone up. So now that demand is so high, the sperm banks cannot meet the demand that is there.
So it's always been a shortage. And so if it's always been a shortage, why? What has been done in over the past few years, and now that we do have this pandemic that I think we're kind of slowly coming out of, what do we need to do?
So I think there's a couple of things. I think honestly, the fact that the demand is so high, I think reflects two things. So first of all, it's not only single women who utilize sperm banks, it's also infertile couples who may have difficulty, there might be a male factor infertility. It also is lesbian couples and other gay couples who utilize these sperm banks. But I will say in terms of the single woman dynamic, I think this shows a reckoning that Black women are okay with being a single Black mother, which has been such a malign, phrase. Nobody wanted to be that. It was equated with welfare queen, all these different things. So that shows that there is a transformation in what it means to be a single Black mother, and that it's not necessarily a curse word. But I think on the other side, Black men would have to feel comfortable with having children out there that they don't know. And I think I think in Western culture, that might be a little bit easier to translate, but I don't necessarily think in Black culture that it translates the same, where it's like, okay, sure, I'm going to have, children out there I don't know about, because there's different options to be anonymous or not. And so I think it really takes a Black man to feel like, okay, I would donate. And I think the only time we really talked about this in our culture was in Spike Lee's She Hate Me, where he talked about the character, the protagonist there, like actually inseminating lesbian couples because, they wanted to conceive and they wanted his good sperm. But I think we really haven't talked about what does it mean to, procreate when you're not raising the child willingly, and that, you want to just, contribute to society per se.
Absolutely. So, and then, I'm gonna ask this question, then I'm gonna bring in our culture crew member, B Fly. But one of the things that they point out in this article, Dr. Cooper, of course, is failure among cryobanks to recruit Black donors. So, and you mentioned this in the earlier part of your remarks. So, do we need to create a campaign? Like, is this really beneficial for Black men? To truly say, you know what, I can be. I want to be a sperm donor. What are some of the benefits for Black men?
I would say it's a way of increasing Black families. So I'm actually in a Facebook group, Mocha Single Moms by Choice. And honestly, I have to say that when there's a Black donor that comes up, literally, like, people will put in the number, like, there's a new sperm donor here, go and grab it. And so I think there's a dearth of like Black women who want to build Black families and may not have a partner, may not have the time to actually cultivate the marriage and all the other relationship stuff that is necessary to raise a child within a marriage, but really just are on a clock. I'm an OBGYN. So many Black women are coming in between the ages of 35 and 45, like that article talked about, who realize their options, their window is closing. And so you have to kind of look at it almost as just being, you're donating. It's almost like donating an organ, except that what's coming out of it is, a whole human being that you don't necessarily, and it's, depends, when they turn 18, you can have the option that they can reach out to you. But what I say in 2022 is that, honestly, DNA is not really like anonymous. Like, you go to ancestry.com and put your DNA in, you can find who your family is, who your people is. So I understand that might keep people from wanting to contribute. But I appreciate this article because it's allowed me to like tap into my networks of my friends and say, like, why don't you donate? You'd be a great donor. And I don't think people have thought about it because we don't talk about this culturally. When you look at the articles about this, there are a whole lot of like white men who are traveling all over the world donating, as, sperm kings is what they call them. But I think when you put the layers of what it means to be how Black men have been, stereotypical, consider how these different sexual deviant things that, have been put onto us through, slavery times and forward, I think it kind of makes it hard. But I think the flip side of it now is that we are in a situation where Black women really want to have kids, and whether that's through freezing embryos and doing a artificial insemination, they want to expand their family. And so really, it's a selfless giving, shall we say, because the money you get from it is not really great, but
Right.
it really is a way to contribute to someone's happiness, if that's the way to put it.
So it, I'm kind of like walking real slow through this, because this is like I just never thought about it. You know what I mean? And until I saw this, and I don't know if people really thought about, hey man, like we see the other side of this, Doc. As a Black woman, we hear the conversations about abortions among Black women. We hear the conversation about single family households. We hear the conversation about like the groups you're part of. You see Black women are just, look, I'm gonna be a single mother. And so when you're talking about, and then of course we hear the conversations about quote unquote deadbeat dads, right? Black men who don't step up after they have the children. So now there's this call saying, hey, we need Black male sperm. And then people are like, well, you got all these other situations that are going. And in this case, we're trying to say, look, you give your sperm, you can make somebody else's happy. But then on the flip side of that, on the other end, is like Black men have been producing, but then they don't take full accountability for it. So I think it's for a lot of people, like psychologically trying to
different.
Right, which is obviously right.
But
psychologically, we're trying to reconcile all of these realities. Like, you want our babies, but you don't want us to be there. Like. So how can we reconcile?
I don't think everybody's ready, because I will say, like, everybody's not ready to be a parent, because it comes with a lot of responsibility. It's like at minimum 18 years of a lot of work. And so if people they're not ready to have a child and raise it, the thing is, to me, that's what I'm saying, it's a selfless act, because I think so much is so easy to get caught up in the other parts of reproductive. When you talk about family planning and you talk about, like you said, abortion, when you talk about who's going to raise the kid, who's the daddy, the Mari aspect, I'm an OBGYN, I've seen it all. However, I think there is something completely separate, and that's why I was talking about compartmentalizing, when a woman says, I want to have a baby, come hell or high water, like this, with these boundaries, and I'm financially, I'm mentally, my community is there to make sure that I'm ready to take care of this child. And I think that is the shift, and that is the difference. And so it's not the same as saying, like, let's just go make a baby and go half on a baby, as the song says, because it's not going half. I'm going 100, and you can just know that you did a great thing.
I'm going 99. You going 1? We go 1.
But the thing is, you don't have to be there at the insemination. You don't have to be there, any of that. And so that's what I'm saying. I'm going 100. You did your little 0.001%. Okay. And so, then there's just like the rest. And so, because I'm like, when it comes to, and I think people get so caught up in like what it takes to make a baby, because, there are so many different ways to make a family now. Science has going leaps and bounds beyond where it was before. And so science is really making us do things, you can literally inseminate a egg and make an embryo, and then it goes for 5 days, and you put it in the freezer, and then you take it out 5 years later, and then voila, a baby. There's so many different ways to make a baby now, and it does not have to be how we thought about it.
All right, so I want to bring B Fly into this, because I know B is just chomping at the bit, wanting to jump into this conversation. So
Hey,
my final question, and then B, I'm gonna let you have it. My final question on this, though, not final question, but before I go to B, when we look at this, does this promote the message of single family households? Is this like, does this just say, hey, Black men, I really don't need you. I need your sperm, but I don't need the rest of you. And I'm good about it. Does this promote a situation where we won't see more two-parent households in the Black community? Is that a concern that doctors and even, donor banks have around this? Because I'm hearing a lot of single Black women, but I'm wondering, is this contributing to fathers not being present?
So I'll say there's different ways to have a family, and just because you're a single mom does not mean you'll never get married. You'll never have another partner. What I'm saying is that you have a finite time. Like women in general have a very finite time to have a baby. You are born with all the eggs you'll ever have. Women, when you carry your child, you are carrying your grandchildren. If you carry a girl, because her eggs are inside, and so we have to understand that it's about the timing. It's not saying that this is eternal. Just because you make a baby outside of wedlock does not mean that you're never going to be married. Does not mean you'll never be partnered. And so I think that's why I'm saying we had to change the way we think about it, because I know it's glaring. I know it's like it's out there, it's avant-garde, but really we have to just understand and accept that there's a very finite time that people can have a baby. And if they turn 45 or they turn 40 and then they can't have children anymore, they lost their window. And so would we rather that person not pass on their DNA and not have that right? Or, would we rather them for a time be single or maybe eternally be single? They have that option. They have that choice. I think the large scale thing of the Black family is that Black children who are well, if that person is well enough to take care of the child, a lot of us come from single parent homes and we still turned out okay. It's not about the inception. It's really about how you finish.
All right, B, let's jump in. What's your take on it, B?
I think this is we're taking a very big step in humanity, and I'm here for it. I don't think this further devolves family. I think this evolves family and the woman's choice in when and how to reproduce. And so this is this is real. I have absolutely never thought about Black sperm donation outside of She Hate Me, and so this is a very important situation. I'm wondering, what is the maximum age of donatable Black male sperm? Is there a maximum age the same way? Because
I don't know what the FDA
there's a maximum age to egg donation.
There is, because it's different. So sperm is made every day, like new sperm is made. But the problem with egg donation is that, like, as I said, you're born with all the eggs you have. And so essentially the quality can change in terms of like whether you have chromosomal issues and all these different things. There is some evidence coming out saying that sperm does have issues with aging that might be linked to autism and things, but it's not the same relationship. I just know that typically who will donate, typically people who are younger donate because it's before they've already formed their families, before they've already been in relationships where someone else has a say in terms of what you do with your sperm potentially. And so really they do typically like recruit college age students, military. They don't typically recruit older men, but I mean, that's a market basically. That's always, an opportunity. That's always an option. But I don't think it's usually, I think the marketing is that it's not marketed towards older men typically.
Okay, so it's not marketing towards older men. Okay.
I'm also seeing a very interesting business niche. There's an agency that's needed that actually cares about Black sperm. It seems like there's no agency, there's no clinic, there's no real place that cares about the collection of Black sperm for the intended Black child, for the intended woman that wants to give birth to a thorough Black child.
And because you have to have the professional who knows that that's a desire. And I think I do have friends who are infertility specialists who thought about opening specifically a Black sperm cryobank, because we have networks, number one, but also because we understand the demand. I don't think until that article came out that per se like white people in the country knew that Black women are looking for sperm, Black sperm. Black people didn't know that Black women were looking for Black sperm. So I think these articles kind of push it forward so it can be an agency. I always believe in for us, by us. I'm a co-founder of Culture Care. We do it for us, like it's healthcare for us, for our people. And I think the same thing with cryobanks. I think there's a market for that, because then it's done with the right intentions. It's done in the right way where it's not going to be abused, shall we say. Because when outsiders come in and, use Black sperm, what does that mean?
Yeah.
And how do they market it? Because I think there was, in the article, they talked about, when they tried to market to young Black men, I think Black fraternities, they were saying that it was too urban in terms of how it was done. How they market to us. Look at McDonald's. They market to us a certain way when they want us to utilize it. But there's a specific way. You could do a step show real quick and be like, donate your sperm and that's it. Whatever.
Yeah, give me an ASPCA Sarah McLachlan Arms of an Angel treatment. And a Black sperm.
Right.
That's
So
what I'm
here's the other
saying.
part about it is the fact that their selection process for a lot of these cryobanks, they said that in this piece, I thought was interesting, the selection process that demands a 3-generation medical history, which may be challenging for Black men who may not have access to quality care, and excludes donors with felony convictions. So the background requirements for you to give sperm may be a huge challenge for Black men. Some, not all of us. Every Black man obviously don't have
Everybody has a court case.
have a criminal record, you know what I mean?
Exactly.
But I'm talking about at least understanding your history, right? Like I've started the process of going on to like Ancestry and looking at my history, but I don't know if other brothers have gone that far yet.
Well, that goes into your grandparents, and that's important so everybody. So you have to understand from the consumer. So if I am looking for sperm, I want to know, like, okay, what runs in the family? Does schizophrenia run in the family? Does, high blood pressure, diabetes, all these different things, because that might not gel with what I have in my own background. And so we might not do this when it comes to typical dating and building a family in a traditional way, but when you're purchasing sperm, you want to know like what you're getting. You want to know your return on investment potentially. And same thing with felons, like, sperm is not cheap. They quoted up to like $1,300, like $900 to $1,300 per vial. So everybody doesn't necessarily want to pay that much money for an ex-felon. I feel like there's other ways to get felon sperm if you really want that. I said what I said.
All right, Doc, can we go to some of we got a lot of people that are checking in, Doc. Can we go into and look, I'm not making light of this situation because again, I understand. I think I have an understanding, Doc, and B, where women really do want to have families, right? And the need for a child can come out of a lot of different spaces, whether it's the biological clock or whether a woman just feels like she's personally ready to take on, that new responsibility or just, and this is, we've been talking about single women, but we also can't exclude that for married women, for women that are in relationships, who may not be able to procreate for a variety of reasons, that this is an option, right? That this is a very real option. And Janelle, one of our loyal watchers, she was talking in the chat and just saying, look, let's not act like this process of in vitro fertilization hasn't been around since the late 1970s, right? Like this has been happening, right, for a very long time. But I think again, Doc, for Black folks, we've been exposed to some of these other dynamics of family planning and the lack of family planning, that this has not really been a conversation piece. This has not been an option.
So I would say for IVF, look at Michelle Obama. Michelle Obama talked about in Becoming that her children were both conceived from IVF. And I think we have to really talk about that so that we can get rid of that stigma and say like, because it's been happening since the 70s, but we might not know someone. So I think it's important to kind of like open up the world and understand like, wow, like, and I think that same caller said that, family, like, it takes a whole village to raise a child. So I don't know why everyone's so, caught up on the 2-parent dynamic. That's not even our tradition culturally. It is the extended family. It is mama, cousin, brother, dad, all of the people, uncle, all these different people make up your village and raise this child. So we have to marry what we know from the technology we have now. And people like Michelle Obama, Barack Obama, who shared their stories and marry with our own traditions and know that we can still carry on the same legacy, despite, not having the traditional 2-parent home, because that has never been, the only way in our community.
Absolutely. Absolutely. All right, let's go to some of the comments we got from our online culture crew. Lana, you checked in and said, Black women choosing to not have a family should be concerning to our community. Don't see that anywhere else. I wonder why. #systemic. Doc, can you speak to that?
So I guess the thing is this, my thing is, look, I'm always going to be pro-choice, pro-Black woman making their choice. So for me, I just think that like you see it in other communities, you just don't know those people. And white women are making, so that's what I'm saying. I think the articles are a little bit misleading because, the New York Times a few months before had an article about how like there's a shortage of sperm all around because the sperm banks can't keep up with the demand because white women are making these same exact decisions. It's just that now when we put the Black on it, it kind of feels like, oh no, like why are Black women doing this? My thing is, if anybody wants to, eradicate the need for Black sperm donors, be better Black men and put a ring on it, get into relationships, do all those different things if you want to do the traditional sense. But do not, come for Black women who want to actually extend their family and utilize their own DNA.
Chris said it. Yeah. How about that? Chris, wow, you said, wow, so now we are promoting having a baby without a family in a lab, and then the government can be the daddy.
So again, we are projecting that welfare queen equivalent. And I think that's what I'm saying. We have to be very careful about how we talk about this decision. If you're going to pay $1,300 for a sperm, most likely you will not be asking the government to pay for your child.
You're not on government assistance.
Yeah, it doesn't work that way. And again, I said, if you want to get, fill-in sperm, if you want to get on the government and have babies, there are other ways to do that without being like a part of the shortage. That's not who the shortage is for. And I think, again, that's what I'm saying. I think we are trying to make Black women out to be who they are not in this situation, because we can't see Black women as anything other than what we want them to be. But this is about freedom of choice. And I think it's hard for people to see that Black women in this situation have a choice. I think it's really hard. Everyone's going to have to get uncomfortable and realize there are other options in dealing with everybody's stuff. You can opt out and start your own family, and maybe wait until people grow up and they're 45 and 50, and then be like, okay, then I got remarried, we blend families, and you call it a day. But it's I don't think obviously the government's not involved with $1,300 going down for some sperm.
Yeah. B, what's your take on this question?
This is only an issue because Black women are still not 100% owners of our wombs in the eyes of the law, in the eyes of the government, in the eyes of other men, in the eyes of society, and it's like there's still some sort of permission, that goes with it. And so it's damned if you do, damned if you don't, because now it's like you can't have an abortion and then you can't buy your sperm. You know what I'm saying? And so you have this situation here that at the end of the day leaves the financially able Black woman angry. All right. And so with that, there's this gap. And so that we can't get beyond the need, of like at the end of the day, like we just need more Black donors. Like we just need more Black donors, and stop policing Black families, and like that's what this is. This is where we're policing the creation of Black families, and that right there, like we need to just cease and desist and like applaud, like, oh wow, Black families can be developed and created in this extremely Afrofuturistic way as well. Like bravo, like that has nothing to do with a single parent trope at all. You know what I'm saying? Like, and so we have to evolve the way we think, about these collective Black issues, about issues that directly affect women that come out into the world, and
I'm in total agreement with your point of, policing the woman's womb, right? Like there's still a lot of control. I mean, we could talk about what white men have done to, remove any type of agency from Black women of their own bodies. But that same mindset has certainly affected Black men in a very, very, unfavorable way, because, we think, okay, yeah, like if brothers, look, here's the thing. And I think Doc and B, we can't just kind of make this one way. I think to your point, Dr. Cooper, the thing is, a lot of Black men are producing babies and are not taking care of these babies.
You said that. Mm-hmm.
No, yeah, damn right I said that. You see what I'm saying? Like, and I'm saying as a man, if we really are serious about being fathers, if we're serious about establishing families, don't produce babies and not take care of them. And then you get mad at women who want to be in a space of being a mother. They want to have a family. Now you thinking about going to the lab to get your child, blah, 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 boom, boom. But if you serious, like, and I'm saying as a Black man, let's create a culture with other Black men where we frown upon deadbeat dads.
Say it.
Like out loud in public around other
Like, bro,
people.
you can't be hanging out with me. And you want to hang out with me every damn weekend. You ain't even spending no time with your children. Or, you know what I'm saying? Like, I don't have friends like that. I don't surround myself. But if I'm coming across a brother, he's a part of my circle. Like, bro, handle your family business, man. Stop. And then, I think we're looking at it wrong, Doc, to your point and to B's point, that we want to look at the woman's choice versus, okay, what's the effect? What was the cause for this effect?
No, but see,
that some guys don't want to step up.
But see, I think that's inserting too much of a heteronormative dynamic on the entire, on all of Black culture, and so it's like all of Black culture is not heteronormative, all right?
Right.
So we are not. So 100% of Black women are not going to reproduce in your typical heteronormative pathway. All righty. So it's like once that's blocked, is there an assumption in the medical world that we are just to default to white sperm and then give birth to mixed children because we're at a financial place to afford you? That's a very scary trajectory. So it's like if the heteronormative cause is important to you, then you need to run your ass to the next sperm clinic and donate to make sure that Black babies are still being born, period. Black mothers and Black fathers are still giving birth to Black children, because the alternative is for a woman to go totally rogue and out of the system. And so it's like, so we can't just heteronormalize the shit out of existence.
No, and we can't. And here's the thing too, and I think this is important, that and Doc, you can kind of help me personally. I'm asking you to help me because I don't have all the answers, obviously. But when we look at this issue, and then we look at the adoption issue, right, of Black children, or the fact that there are a number of Black children, so specifically once you get to a certain age, like 10, 12 years old, that are left in the system, right?
Yes.
How do we? That's another dynamic of this. Like some folks, Jayla, you checked in and you said there are so many Black children that are available for adoption. Let's deal with that first. I don't know if we can do one over the other, or because I feel like in terms of the family dynamic, the woman's needs, the family's needs, it's one thing for a woman to get, a sperm donor. Then there's another thing to adopt a child that may not have any of your qualities, any of your DNA. You know what I mean? So I don't know if we can put those up as like apples and oranges in that comparison, Doc, or what?
It's not. I think, at the end of the day, we have to talk about what is valuable in terms of Blackness and all these different things. And I think the adoption issue is a huge issue that I think kind of sometimes is middle in this, because I will say as an OBGYN, I talk to my patients about their fertility, about their family planning. And I've had patients who were not able to adopt because they lived in a one bedroom that had a den. And so when the adoption agency came around, the social worker said, you have a den. And so you can't, we know that even if you move into the den, we know that you won't let the baby keep that room. This woman told me everyone else in the building has kids in their room, in that room, but that's fine because it's their biological child. But when you start doing adoption, number one, adoption is very costly. Number two, adoption has no guarantees. Number three, I've had a friend who multiple times tried to adopt, and moms have the right to change their minds, and they kept losing babies that way. And so again, it's still a very, it's not an easy process. Everyone acts like it's very easy, but until I think the adoption issue is a little bit separate, because we need to kind of like remove a lot of the barriers that prevent Black children from being adopted, because that's what I've seen as an OBGYN, where a lot of patients only had the option to get their own child because that's how their house is set up. I live in the Bay Area where housing is very tight, and it's not easy just like, oh, let me get a bigger apartment. You could be paying double the amount of money from what you started with your lease, years ago. So I think, I understand the sentiment, and, we have to also, people who say that, I hope they are adopting patients, babies themselves, because I feel like everyone wants to say someone else can adopt, but don't want to adopt themselves. And so, like if someone's single and wants to have a baby, there are a lot of obstacles even on the adoption side. There's obstacles all around. So I don't want anybody to think it's just like it's just like a switch, like, oh, instead of a sperm donor, I'm just going to go do that. I've seen people try and they also failed in that respect as well. I think the key thing is to focus on what people want, and that's their choice. If that is their choice, they just want access, and that is it.
Yeah, I would agree with you there on that one, Doc. I mean, I think that for that choice, this is about choice. This is about a woman and a man, depending on the circumstances, right? But this is about some folks having the conversations about this. And one of the big things, being, Doc, that I hope that doesn't come out of this conversation is that we start blaming or stigmatizing or making or shaming people about their choices, right? Especially Black women. It's not going to do no good for a Black man or another Black woman to shame a sister because she simply wants to have a child. She simply wants to, look, let me tell y'all something. Let's keep it like this, Doc, and B. How many women have children who probably aren't fit to be mothers? Let's keep it real. Versus women who want a child, who make a space for a child, who's there to emotionally provide, financially provide, and she decides to go down this route. I'm not going to beat her up. That's
I don't
silly.
want to shame either. I don't want to shame, moms who go through their stuff and can't, manage their children just as much as, I don't shame men who aren't there. But what I will say is this. I know a lot of people who choose this route because they were single mothers with a partner who they had to spend thousands and thousands of dollars on, trying to get lawyers to get child support out of them. And so it's a cheaper option, because the thing is that $1,300 is much cheaper compared to tens of thousands of dollars in lawyer fees. Same, and I think everyone wants to, I think I don't want, because I don't shame, as an OBGYN, I take care of all types of patients. And, I see a lot of people make that comparison between a mom who really wants to have a baby and is having fertility issues versus a mom who doesn't really want to have all these kids, shall we say. But I don't want to, we never know, we know there are a lot of societal reasons why people end up in that situation where they can't handle all the kids they have, where they didn't have access to good healthcare, they didn't have access to a job, they didn't have access to a lot of things. And so I don't even want to, I think, again, that's kind of more like apples and oranges. But really, I think the better comparison is, you can have a child with any old body from around the way, but if they don't do what they're supposed to do, then you have to then spend money to make sure that they actually do what they're supposed to do. And lawyers are very expensive. And so some people would rather do it on the front end than on the back end.
Yeah.
And I think really a lot of the comments, which are saying like, oh, everyone needs a mother and a father. Children need love. That's what they need. And so if someone's willing to provide it, then let them. But beyond that, if you have an issue with this, make sure your friends are better. Make sure your friends are stepping up to plate to make sure they're making commitments, and, make sure they're donating if they don't want to have kids of their own. And I think to her point, 60% of the national data show that sperm banks are used by like LGBTQ people and couples. And so we can't, eliminate that. Even if everyone, got booed up with a man who wanted a man, there's still going to be people who want to have Black families and have Black babies who would not have access because they're not in a heteronormative couple relationship. And so it's really about, to me, the donation part is the way to think about it. You're just like you donate your clothes to Goodwill. Like, this is the same thing. Donate your genes. If you have something good to pass on, if you got 50 million, we got a lot of hypertension and diabetes, in the family. Make sure you don't, make sure you're eating healthy so you don't pass those things on, number one. But number two, also just make sure that, everyone doesn't need to donate. This is not a big mad rush for everyone to donate, but really be introspective about who would be good to donate, who would be, who is ideal, because these are not the same. It's not eugenics in the sense of like certain traits need to get passed down. What it really is about making sure that people know they're buying a product, and it has to be appealing. You don't want a lot of stuff with a lot of different issues. Like there's different genetic issues that run in the Black community, like sickle cell trait and things like that. And those are harder sells because it's so common. But, at the end of the day, we have to just make sure that we look at it is what it is. It is really people just wanting to make a choice and be supportive of their choice. That's it.
Absolutely, absolutely. Dr. Joy Cooper, I truly appreciate you for coming on and sharing your insight about this. I think this is absolutely fascinating. I'm kind of still shaping my view of this as I'm listening to you, listening to B, and just kind of taking it in all based upon what folks are saying. But this is absolutely fascinating, to say the least, which is why we wanted to have the conversation, because I don't think that we're just having enough discussion about having a family in a non-traditional way, right? One thing I am sure about, I'm tired of fathers and mothers walking away. I'm tired of fathers and mothers who are choosing that once a child comes into their life, they choose foolishness over parenting. You know what I mean? And so if this is an option where somebody wants to give their love and they're able to give their love, versus somebody who just had a good time one night, right? And just like, oh man, now I got to deal with this and all that. Like, man, this is a much better option. But I just found this to be very fascinating. So Dr. Cooper, thank you for your time today.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. And I think someone commented they wanted to know my company. It's called Our Culture Care, OurCultureCare.com. Check us out. We're in California.
Oh, awesome. What's the website for that, Doc?
OurCulture, like your show, care, care.com.
Our Culture Care. There it is right there, Dr. Joy Cooper. Doc, thank you so much for being on the show. Thank you for joining us for this important discussion. Absolutely. All right, folks, we got to take a quick pause. When we come forward, let me give you an update. I got my sister B Fly with me. That's giving you an update on what's happening with the case that I'm very, very excited about and that I'm very passionate about. We'll talk about that and some more. So stay with us. It's The Culture here on the Black Star Network.
Pull up a chair. Take your seat. The Black Tape with me, Dr. Greg Carr, here on the Black Star Network. Every week, we'll take a deeper dive into the world we're living in. Join the conversation only on the Black Star Network.
Hatred on the streets, a horrific scene, a white nationalist rally that descended into deadly violence.
White people are losing their damn minds.
As an angry pro-Trump mob storms the U.S. Capitol, we've seen shootings.
We're about to see the rise of what I call white minority resistance. We have seen white folks in this country who simply cannot tolerate black folks voting.
I think what we're seeing is the inevitable result of violent denial.
This is part of American history. Every time that people of color have made progress, whether real or symbolic, there has been what Carol Anderson at Emory University calls white rage as a backlash.
This is the rise of the Proud Boys and the Boogaloo Boys. America, there's going to be more of this.
Here's all the Proud Boys, guys. This country is getting increasingly racist in its behaviors and its attitudes because of the fear of white people.
The fear that they're taking our jobs, they're taking our resources, they're taking our women. This is white fear.
When we invest in ourselves, our glow, our vision, our vibe, we all shine. Together, we are black beyond measure.
When you talk about blackness and what happens in black culture, we're about covering these things that matter to us, speaking to our issues and concerns.
This is a genuine people-powered movement.
There's a lot of stuff that we're not getting. You get it, and you spread the word.
We wish to plead our own cause. Too long have others spoken for us. We cannot tell our own story if we can't pay for it. This is about covering us. Invest in black-owned media. Your dollars matter. We don't have to keep asking them to cover our stuff. So please support us in what we do, folks. We want to hit 2,000 people, $50 this month, raise $100,000. We're behind 100,000, so we want to hit that. Y'all money makes this possible. Check some money orders. Go to P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 20037-0196. Cash App is $RM Unfiltered. PayPal is R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle is roland@rolandsmartin.com.
When we invest in ourselves, we're investing in what's next for all of us. Growing, creating, making moves that move us all forward. Together, we are Black beyond measure.
All right, folks, welcome back to the show. Final conversation. I want to bring in our culture crew member, B Fly, into this discussion. First and foremost, B, I have to say, yeah, that black sperm donor conversation, that's a different one. That's a different one. I'm so happy that we had it. I'm so happy that we had it because a lot of, I just don't talk about that. You know what I mean? And so when I came across the article, I was like, yo, we got to talk about this. This is fascinating.
It's honestly, it's because there's where we live inside of the reproductive privilege, Farajii, we're married with kids. So these are certain situations that, we've checked kind of off of our life box. And so we don't necessarily think about these issues anymore,
That's real. That's very real. You're right. Did we lose B? We got her. We gotta think her feed to stop. But you're absolutely right, B. And I think that's the part about that conversation, folks, that I think that is important, that we get out of our own comfort zone. We get out of our own shoes and think about other folks that we got beat back. So I think you're absolutely on point, B, in saying that, you and I, we've made these choices already and we've kind of moved on to other things. But for some people who hasn't made that choice, this is the choice that's before them, right? And so to get out of our own comfort zone, to get out of our own shoes, that's very important for us to consider when having these conversations. It may not be a preference for you, but for somebody else, that could be the choices that they have.
Yeah, and so it makes me recognize one of the like a privilege that I live in. That I do have counterparts who don't live in that privilege. And who are still trying to figure those parts out. So thankfully we are in a part of our history to where we are able to have more options when it comes to our reproductive health, and we can still populate the planet, in abundant, on purpose ways, and I think that's really what this goes to. This isn't about the happenstance child. This is about the intentional child, and couples wanting to create more intentional children, on their own terms, and they should be able to have that right. Am I open to the idea of, droves of non-Black potential parents wanting Black sperm, specifically Black eggs, specifically?
Yeah.
And so that kind of that turns my stomach, but it also turns my stomach when I think about the Black couple who, you want to be able to shop for your embryo and you can't shop for Black embryos. That's a problem, and are they supposed to just receive a white embryo just because they want to procreate?
Right.
That can't be right. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
That can't be okay. And the idea that that's what women have been settling for, is that what women have been settling for?
Yeah.
It's not okay.
And you know what, B? When we were talking to Dr. Cooper, I didn't. One of the things that I kept in mind was, like we see these kind of like dystopian stories, like we could talk about Handmaid's Tale and all of this other stuff. When you start to really dictate what type of family is considered to be acceptable, right? You start to dictate, well, you can't have this child. Like in this day and time, if a person or if a group of person, if a couple wants to adopt, well, you can't adopt this Black child. You can't adopt this person. Or you want to have, you want to go to a sperm bank, you can't get this type of sperm or that type of sperm. Like, I mean, folks, we're living in different times. We are living in a different time. So, you know, we have to even kind of be cognizant of the fact that people are going to kind of operate from a different space than we do. And it could be a gift, it could be a curse. I don't know. But, you know, it's certainly something that's important for us to discuss.
It's definitely more gift. It's definitely more gift than curse. You know, like if you believe that science is if science is good and science comes from God, then this is a good thing, you know?
Yep.
And
Yep.
so like
I know,
everything.
and then let me just say, I know some women who have benefited from, you know, who were unable because of, you know, the way their bodies are, they weren't able to conceive. So I know some sisters, some older women have benefited from the adoption as well as going to the bank.
I just saw this fast-paced TikTok that was about a white woman who received sperm in the mail, impregnated herself with said sperm, got pregnant, delivered said baby, and the end of the TikTok is boom, her with the baby breastfeeding.
Damn. That's a TikTok video?
It was a whole TikTok. I mean, I'm sure it took her a year to make or whatever. You know what I'm saying? But like the production level focus, you know, like was serious. You know, I don't know how the lighting stayed the same the whole time. These are my questions, but you know what I'm saying? But you know, but this is what, you know, came across, you know, my 90 seconds, you know, and so it was like, oh shit, interesting, you know, and you know, it was way more hearts. It was way more hearts than woes, you know, in the situation.
And that speaks volumes, because that just takes, you know, you got to include social media in that. But for those who might be resistant to this idea, let me offer this recommendation. Maybe we should stop looking at, well, how this is done or how this is done versus why this is done, right? You know, there's a huge why women are going down this, making this choice. And that's the part. That's the part that I think that we need to look at. Okay, so why is it? And we don't have enough time here on the show today to certainly talk about it. We certainly touched a little bit on it. You know, you're talking about qualified men who are, you know, they know their family history. Like, you have all of these things. Making a baby is not a lightweight thing. That's one of the few great benefits of being a human being, that you can procreate, right? And so it's not a lightweight thing, but how and versus who you procreate with, those are two different things, right? Like if you are not choosing the right partner, Lord have mercy. And I thank God for my wife. You know what I'm saying? If you're not choosing the right partner to have this baby with,
you know, I think, you know, at the end of the day, Farajii, people want love. And I think a gross misconception of parenthood is that you're going to receive a bigger amount of love, you know what I'm saying, like from the process of parenting, that's going to take over any other place of love lack, you know? And so, but money cannot buy love, you know?
Nope.
And so I think, to your point, like the sad part of it, you know, it has our humaning, our human relation devolved to the point to where procreating with each other has just become too toxic on a mass level.
B, don't start a whole new conversation. Don't do it, sis.
I mean,
But I'm with you.
That's
I'm
the
with
question.
you.
That's the overarching
Right.
thing, because we've
Have we
stepped
gotten
so
to that
far
place?
out of the nuclear.
That's a decent question. Like, have we gotten to that place where procreating with each other is so toxic that we decide on alternative means? We don't even want to deal with it no more.
I mean, we all know, our mamas say, I can be broke by my damn self.
There it is.
Is this the child of that?
There it is. I'm gonna leave that there. I want to get to this update, D. This was a case, a story that was near and dear to my heart. It hit me hard. This is the case of 21-year-old Asia Womack. Do y'all remember last week? I've said I think it was the beginning of last week, but we talked about it on the show, where this 21-year-old who was a basketball player, basketball star when she was in high school, she was having a basketball game with a friend, a 31-year-old man by the name of Cameron Hogg. And they were talking trash and all of this stuff. And she essentially beat him in the basketball game. He left. She ended up going home, hanging out with a friend. He came over because he knew they're in each other's circle. He came back, got out of his truck angry, pulled out a gun, and shot little Asia Womack 4 times right there as her and her friend were just chilling on the porch watching TV. And so I had put it out there that we need to make sure that this guy is put into police custody and the family is brought some justice. Well, it was reported last week on Thursday that Cameron Hogg was arrested and he is now in custody. And, he has been charged with the murder of Asia Womack, a senseless murder, that didn't need to happen. But because of his ego and his anger, he decided to kill that little sister. So big shout out to the folks in Dallas, to the Dallas Police Department for doing the job of finding this guy, because this joker needs to be behind bars. And it's so sad that someone has to lose their life over a basketball game. I cannot get over this, B. A basketball game. Her mother said that Asia brought this guy into the fold, into her family, treated him with love. She fed him. They hung out together. He sat in her home and spoke to the mom and all of these things. And he ended up killing her because of a basketball game. Put that joker under the jail.
Nah, he killed her because of jealousy, envy. That's what that was. That wasn't
about jealousy and envy of what her skills.
It was, yeah, and probably of her family. You know what I'm saying? Probably the love that surrounded her. Like there wasn't a game. He wanted to snuff out her life. And that's real. And I have a feeling that there were probably indicators of that in their relationship before that day. There were indicators of that in his household, before that day. I would in these situations, like we should be allowed to interview the parents. We should be allowed to like full counsel, like interviewing of the parents, like what's going on. Like this can't be the first time that your child exhibited, this extreme behavior, And so it's like in order to get to the bottom, of where we went wrong as a society, And so when you're dealing with children, there should be a deeper level, of investigation, to understand why this is happening.
Absolutely.
But this
Absolutely.
is way more than a game,
I'm sure you're right. I'm sure you're totally right, because if that's how you feel after a pickup game of basketball, trash talking, and you decided to take it to this level.
Yeah, like I feel like there was someone's social media probably got, an uncomfortable amount of likes as a result, like something was, and so this is ego combined with envy, you know, a splash of sexism. And you know, this is horrible. This is horrible. But
it's very bad.
The child didn't fall out of the planet. He came from our society. These ills are present.
No doubt. No doubt at all. But at least we know he's behind bars. And again, our condolences go out to the family of Asia Womack, and, you know, to the community that she was killed in, the friend who had to witness the whole thing. Man, oh man, my heart goes out to everyone that's involved in this situation. And I'm certainly glad that Cameron is now locked up and behind bars. B, I thank you so much for your time today. Always a pleasure to have you on and reconnecting. And I'm sure that, you know, you got some things working. So when you're ready to talk about some of the projects you got going, we are certainly here to support you, B. Thank you so much, sis, and thank you for being so good for the culture.
And thank you for having me, Farajii.
Absolutely. Anytime. All right, folks, that's going to do it for us. I thank each and every one of you for joining us for the conversation. Big shout out to my new watchers. If y'all just tuned into the culture today, welcome. I hope you enjoyed the conversation. Hopefully you enjoyed the interactions of our chat on Facebook and on YouTube. We truly, truly appreciate it. Big shout out to my team, my man King Keenan, Ariel, and all of my control room team for making it sound so good. Make sure y'all stay tuned for Roland Martin Unfiltered, which is coming up at 6 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. But big shout out to the RMU team as well. Make sure you continue to support us here at Black Star Network. Go to our website at blackstarnetwork.com. Support us through all of those various payment. We need your financial support, sharing the content. And so every dollar, every cent matters. So continue to show us support here at blackstarnetwork.com. Also, make sure y'all head over to and check me out on all of my social media. I'm going to be followed at The Real Farajii on Instagram, Farajii on Twitter, and Farajii Muhammad on Facebook. Would love to connect with you, love to build with you, and continue to have the conversations that we have here. We can have it offline, and you can just, your support of this show is everything to me. So building this community is everything. So let's continue to build the community. As always, never be afraid to challenge what's wrong, stand for what's right while being yourself in the process, God willing. We'll talk tomorrow for another exciting edition of The Culture right here on the Black Star Network. Talk to you tomorrow. Peace.